welcome to the Red Room. Our guest today is the Mad Hermit. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for having me. It's very nice of you to give me an invite, especially on my birthday, which is today.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm very excited
happy
about that.
birthday.
Birthday, and thank you for coming to celebrate your birthday with us.
Oh, thank you. It's actually perfect. I love it a lot. This is a good day for it.
And it's still early in where you live, right?
Montana.
Yeah, it's 11 here, almost noon. So
We've met you quite recently.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if you are on social media, but if you are, I don't think we had met before on social media.
I try to stay off. I get too mad. I start running my mouth too quick. I try to just minimize my social presence as much as
You're
possible.
Hermit, so you shouldn't.
Yeah,
Exactly. You should stay away.
Hermits.
I I appreciate the fighters that are out there in it a lot, like you and Pundit, but I'm a little more low key. I just stay in the background as much as I can, I guess.
So the pundit was exactly the reason that we started talking. You have
Yeah.
been doing the layout and I don't know, editing as well, perhaps for the RPG Pundit new.
Yeah, I'm publishing his Pundit Files little pamphlets that he puts out once every 2 weeks. They go out on your site, the Red Room. So I do the layouts for those and compile them together, and then my business partner Sean Taylor does a piece of art for each one of those that we put out. And it's been working really nice. I've been having a lot of fun with that. It lets me experiment a little bit with layouts. It's really making me faster at my layouts, which I appreciate a lot. I like that. It's in that, and that's a really important thing for small press publishing, especially PDF level publishing. You need to be able to produce something every few weeks, So
Um, and by the way, I know that usually, at least in the case of the previous publication that the Pundit has done, like this, the RPG Pundit Presents, he later did some anthologies, whatever is it called. Will you do as well as that for the files, or that can be different?
like a compendium, kind of pull them
Yeah,
together.
something like that.
Yeah, we've spoken about it already. I think we need to get more under our belt so that he has more to select from, see which ones he liked the best. I mean, I have my favorites. For instance, I like that mass combat issue, the siege warfare one that he did. I really like that. It's just mainly because it applies to my own games, and his same thing with like his NPC issue that he put out. I love that one. Those are things that I use a lot in my own games. So, but once he gets enough of those all together, then I'm absolutely certain we'll put together a compilation of some of them, probably maybe once a year or twice a year, or who knows, however he wants to do it. I'm trying to get him actually to expand his it was a Baghdad issue he did. We did an issue that has, a map of Baghdad and he has a really good historical breakdown of medieval Baghdad, which by the way has a whole bunch of canals in it. Did you know that? I didn't know that about Baghdad. And of ancient cities, it's really interesting because it's got like a perfectly circular sort of walled off area in the middle of the city where the palace is in the dead center, but then like the upper class living arrangements are all in the sort of the outer ring of that inner circle, and then the canals all around it, and it's surrounded by water. So it's just a fascinating city. I had no idea that it had that much history. It looked that cool. It's a very good setting for at least for a historical role playing game, and I'm hoping I keep bugging him about it. I think he should expand that into a much bigger sort of setting piece. But he's pretty good at what he does. He knows what'll go and what won't. So I'll let him tell me where he wants to go with that.
I actually knew the answer for this, but that's something that people usually ask about. Will there be a printed version or something? And
Yeah, I think so. I
will
think
be
so.
eventually.
I believe that we will do that. So in the States, of course, the easiest way for us to do that would be to put it on Drive-Through RPG to get that printing, or lulu.com.
Mhm.
But that's not the only game in town as far as that goes. For instance, I'm not sure how you do your printing, but you do it well. And if that's print on demand, that's high quality print on demand. And so those same systems, I imagine we could use those so that we could publish on the Red Room through a print on demand process as well. We ourselves would have to get connected in there to get that laid out and done correctly. But
Yeah, we
We
use
use Lulu,
Lulu.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot
oh,
better than drive-through.
Yeah,
quality.
the quality in Lulu is well, you have several options as well, not just because in drive-through you choose either black and white or color, um,
yep,
cover or soft cover.
yep,
On Lulu you have some more options.
I see.
Paper quality, um, printing quality as well. There are two
Um,
options for printing
I
quality.
think the quality might even be better, given the example of the book that you sent me, the Wretched Verse. That's high quality print. It's really well bound. It looks like those are full cover bleeds on the cover. It's good stuff. I'm not sure that. I think there are some restrictions. I don't know if you can do a full color bleed on drive through. Maybe I'll have to look into that, but I'm not certain that that's possible. But I noticed that you guys have that, and that's ideal. That makes it much easier. Your covers look a little sharper when they go clear to the edges. So
Yeah. The ones in drive-through, it's cheaper. That's the advantage.
yeah,
Uh,
it's nice.
the-
In the olden days, of course, we would have to go to a printer, and so for instance, I still have. I call it, every time I move somewhere, I've got to move my pyramid with me, right? Box by box of books, because I've got not well, like the oldest stuff, I only have a couple of boxes left of, but like Cold Still Rain, I've still got a mountain of Cold Still Rain laying around. Yeah, I have to take it with me everywhere I go, and it's thousands of pounds of books because they're big books. So
Yeah, I think print on demand really helped the
yes,
when you
yes,
don't have to have the books at your.
yeah, especially for us, it
For
wouldn't
us, it would be
really work.
impossible. Yeah.
It wouldn't work. Shipping from Portugal.
yeah, yeah,
Even most of our customers, I would say, probably at least the ones that buy print are in the US. So
right.
it wouldn't work. Pretty expensive. And it takes
Yeah, yeah, that would get very spendy very quickly. Yeah.
So you are part of one of the RPG Pundits playing groups, right?
Yeah, I really lucked out. He did a video one day and I was watching it. I think it was live, and I was cooking dinner or doing dishes or something while it was gone. And so it ran, past kind of, he ended it pretty much. And then just as it was about to blank out, he pulled it back on and he was like, "Oh, wait a minute, I forgot about something. I got this spot open in one of my role-playing games. If anyone's interested, send me an email." So I thought, okay, I saw that. I right then I dried my hands, went from the dishes to the keyboard, hit the keyboard, wrote him a letter, said, "Hey, I've been watching you, I like your stuff," and he's a Mason, I'm a Mason, so I threw that in there too. Hopefully that would help. And me and another guy got picked. I think they were going to kind of weed one of us out, but they kept both of us, and we both really like it. We're having a blast in that game. It's very fun. We're playing through the what's it is Sword and Caravan
Mhm.
campaign, and it's in the set in the right around the Crusades, the first Crusade, a little after the very first Crusade, kind of during the peace that was negotiated out between Richard and what's his bus, Saladin. So we're just exploring the Silk Road. It's a very fun adventure. We have a lot of fun playing in that game. I think everyone in the game is a dungeon master, which to me, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, DMs are good players," and they can be, but they're also critical players. They're critical the whole time. So it's fun to see Pundit wrangle a bunch of dungeon masters around in a game, because we can cause a lot of trouble, and we do. If we get a little bored, we start, sending up sparks. But he's an excellent dungeon master. It's a very fun game to be in.
I haven't seen him running any of his campaigns. I think
You haven't seen him?
there's somewhere in YouTube there's a channel, one of his players. I'm not sure if he's in your group or not, but I think
Spaceus?
uh no, I meant really with the is Space Zeus playing in the Pandits.
Yes.
Oh,
Space Zeus does some live games, and I do some live games sometimes. I have, like, for playtesting the modules we're going to release on Kickstarter. I like to playtest those. I like to playtest and put those out live. I think it's fun. You get to see what's going on, and then when you actually get the module, you might see where changes were made in the course of the game, because um I love to playtest my stuff, because man, you got to have your players break things before you can put it out. They go in and they really can rip it up, and I love that. So, but I don't know what pundits. I think there are some live games of pundit out there.
I think so. I'm not really sure where, but I think there's a YouTube channel or maybe a podcast. I'm not really sure about that.
I'm trying to remember the name. Something the Elf.
Yeah, Bill the Elf.
Mhm.
Bill the Elf.
Bill the Elf. Yeah, that's it. I believe that there are some there. I haven't seen those. I'm in a game with him every 2 weeks, so I don't have to worry about it. I haven't looked for him. I get to see all the torture I need up close. But yeah, he does run them, and I think some people do record them. They're going. I wish he would put ours live. I think ours live would be fun. I don't know if that would change it. It does change a little bit when you're live. And I don't think I doubt he's really into that idea, and it probably would change the game a little bit. It is a little different when there's a live audience and people watching. It does alter a little bit how you react and how things go, but
Yeah, probably.
we'll figure it out eventually, I figure.
Well,
Yeah.
I was watching your live stream with the Pandit. Was Monday, right?
Yeah, it was. He had me on. It's really nice of him to do that for me. I really appreciated it, because we work together. So he was like, "Well, you better get out there and let people know who you are," because I put a lot of my links to my stuff in his stuff, when I'm putting it out. So I know that I get views through that, but a lot of people don't know who I am or haven't heard me or know anything about me. So it's kind of fun to get out and let people get a look. And now you'll never get it out of your head.
The RPG not the RPG Pandit, the Pandit Files, but we also need to mention the
Yep.
Mad Hermit Almanac that is in.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's mine. I'm putting it out, and I'll have the third one out. I'm hoping I'll have it done by the end of today. If not today, tomorrow. That one I lost the map for. It's kind of a dungeon style adventure, and it's got a little map, and I found all the other maps in that same genre that deal with those questing rings, like I was talking about, all of them, even the ones that haven't been detailed, that I've just made, that I haven't done anything with, except the one that I want to publish. So I'm having to remake that one today, but I think I can do it. I remember the beginning of it pretty good. I remember some of the end. I just got to get it all linked up in there, and maybe I can make it better than the original. But then that'll be out today for sure.
Because while I was watching that, I found out that you had done some stuff before, because I thought that you were just publishing now this these pieces of stuff that you had, but I didn't know yet that you had before, or I don't know, probably still
Yeah,
published
I've been
stuff,
in the
but
I've been in the
some.
game quite a while. I've been publishing and doing stuff with role playing games since the early 90s. I got into I mean, I've always loved role playing games. I just didn't really see a way to get into the industry of it. I thought that the ideal job would have been to get hired by, say, WotC or something, right? And work for Dungeons and Dragons, do design work there, make adventures that way, or just send into the slush piles for Dungeon Magazine, that sort of thing, and never really come out of it. But I fell in love with White Wolf's vampire game in the early 90s. Just fell in love with it. I thought that was a great system, perfect timing for that game. And we played that for quite a while. And then the live action aspect of it started to kind of take off and grow. And so we were early adopters of that. and we started in with the Camarilla running games. The national kind of organization for that, it was being ran by a company called Night Owl Industries, but the game itself was kind of centered in Seattle, which is not too far from where I'm at. It's 6-7 hours, but close enough. And there was a little bit of like the groups would interact to a degree because we wanted our storylines to kind of have national reach, so we would roughly know the elders of our clans in Seattle, and be able to have our clans interact with those clans. And it made it feel more realistic. It just widened the scope of the game. But we also started putting together conventions, live action vampire conventions, where we'd rent out like a big theater, say in Spokane, Washington or something. And then we'd make a game, create a bunch of characters for the game, and then sell. People could come in and play through the weekend as their vampire characters in the theater. And those were not just really, they were a lot of work, but they were really fun and they were very popular. We started really hitting. We'd have a lot of people showing up to these conventions to play through the games. And so licensing was becoming important. And I needed to get Night Owl to officially license us. And my God, they just wouldn't. We tried everything and went on and on, fighting with them for months, trying to get licensing so that we could charge more. I think we were limited. I think we could only charge like $5 a character or something, whereas some of these conventions were charging like $50 for this, similar level of, actually a lower level of interaction and probably a lower level of quality. But they were closer to Night Owl, and Night Owl knew them, and so they were all coming in under Night Owl's wing, but I couldn't get in to save myself. So I was bitching about it so much. My father-in-law, who owned a publishing company at the time, he just finally one day at dinner, he's like, "Are they the only game in town? Can't you write your own? Just publish it?" I was like, "Well, how the hell would I publish it?" He's like, "I own a publishing company. I'll show you how to publish it." And so literally just like a month later, I had a book out. I wrote it in a week. We laid it out, and it shows, it totally shows. But the game system did work, and it worked well for live action role-playing games, and it allowed us to run our convention. So we just kept going with that. Then we produced another book the next year, which was sort of a second one in the series that dealt with fallen angels. And that one actually hit. People loved that one. That one sold. And people were very interested in that one. We had gone on into ghosts, and I think we were doing witches. We never did finish the witches part of it. We did finish the ghost book for that, but we didn't publish the ghost book. It's available out there somewhere. It's called Shades of the Harrowing. And one of my business partners at the time took the lead on that, so he did most of the writing. But the published books were just Shades of Nightfall and then Shades of Divinity. But that was my first taste of like, oh, wait a minute, you can sell a book, you can get distributorship, you can get this done. It's not impossible, and I can do it all on my own. So we broke away from the vampire thing, started going into other game stuff. I'd been slowly developing a game. I loved Stephen King's Dark Tower series. You know what those are? You read those? I was a mad devotee of those games. And a good friend of mine who was an artist who I'd gone to music college with at the end of the 80s, he happened to be living with Stephen King's private secretary at the time. And so and he was doing covers for the book. So we made an appeal to Stephen King to try to get the licensing straight up for the Gunslinger thing. And he was very gracious and nice. I got to admit that. He told us he had been asked for it 1,000,000 times, and that he couldn't give it away, is that his contracts with his own publishers forestalled his ability to like license any side projects or anything with it. And so, but he also said, well, just kind of, change it a bit. And so we did. What we took was like the gunslingers from the Dark Tower, and we installed them as sort of a central aspect of the game, and we called them gunslingers, but we changed some of the things. I mean, they still have, the ability to reload quickly with their fingers, and, just all sorts of fun little things that were in the books. But then we broadened out and changed the story of that setting and how it was going to work. So we made our own sort of fantasy setting on the world, where the world had been destroyed during the American Civil War, by a large meteor that had struck the world, kind of thrown everything back a couple hundred years. And out of the ashes of that, people are kind of coming back, online. Humanity's coming back online, little fits and starts. And you have cults and like a religious cult called the New Roman Church that's sort of taken over. And things have gone back to a more medieval setting. So we have baronies and these little warring factions everywhere. And it's all done with, just right at the edge of where they're starting to produce shelled ammunition for like cults, that sort of thing, so that we get the right guns. We got the right era, and it's a good game. Very complex game. I'm a big fan of Rollmaster, the game Rollmaster, and I know that's a very crunchy game, and some people are just like, oh my god, not Rollmaster. I love Rollmaster. I think it has its own feeling, its own flow. Once you know how the game works, you can really make that game sing. So I tried to make something in the vein of Rollmaster without all the charts. A pretty complex game that could handle just about anything. And it is a rugged, complex system. It's difficult to learn the system. That hampered us, of course, because it wasn't just an easy sell. But I've found that anyone I ever ran the game for, I sold the game to. So when we would go to conventions, or we would go to game stores and just set up for the day and play the game all day. I'd have pre-made characters, and never once did someone play in that game and not buy the game from it. It was a good game, just a little tough to figure out. Once you see how it works, though, it's a pretty slick system, very lethal system, but a good one. Something like I think we had like six-page character sheet, something like that. It's a big game. It's a beefy game, but it worked. So that was my next big foray out into it. And like I told Pundit in the interview, along the course of that, we had invested into the idea of a VTT. We thought it would be fun to be able to play with our friends who were around the country that after college, a lot of them had moved, but they still wanted to play. So we were, it was always a dream of mine to try to be able to do that. There were a couple of systems that were attempting it at the time. I can't remember the names. One was something Monkey or something. But we were the first kind of full range, kind of big hit at it. We did spend a lot in advertisement. We did get it up and rolling in a sort of a testing phase for a few months. We had quite a large membership just to play test it with us, but we never could really get it over the hump. And that really comes down to me. It was ultimately my failure. I just couldn't manage the programming well enough. Since it's all outside of my scope, I couldn't reach in and make any changes or really see where things needed to be altered. My programmers were really good. I'm going to give them that, because man, they did a hell of a job with what they had. But we never were able to get it up to really functioning. It finally we ran out of money eventually, and that was it. We had to close it down, but it was close. I came that close to being a millionaire on that.
That's some time ago,
It was
right?
very close. What's
Before
that?
that was before those VTTs, those larger ones appeared, right?
Yeah, it was very early. It would have been I think 95, around there,
Oh.
somewhere in there, 95, 96. It was early for it. Or no, I take that back. That's incorrect. It was 2005, somewhere around there. 2006, I think, is when we fell out of that. So 10 years past those earlier ones. But it was still very early for it. It's where it could have come from. It was when it was being developed, when voice over IP was starting to get clarified down to where it could work. There were systems we could use, workarounds. For instance, we could use sort of other programs to get our voice through our own program, but we didn't want to do that. We really wanted proprietary systems, so that we weren't reliant on another company for our own functions. And we couldn't get there. We tried. I tried, but in the end, it just fell through.
But after that, you still had your publishing stuff going.
That was a pretty big kick. We lost a lot of money there. That hurt. I fell back from that and was a little bit like, oh crap, that money should have just been put in books. We should have just stuck with our gaming books and continued on that train. We'd really over invested in Ghost Orb, and when it fell hard. So I just stayed out of everything for a few years, but eventually, I couldn't stay away forever just because I love role playing. I certainly wasn't going to stop playing, and eventually, I'm stacking up piles of stuff that I've written for my own games, and pretty soon I was just like, well, why the hell aren't we just doing some modules here? There was kind of a rush at the time in 5e modules coming from, every corner. I thought, well, God, we can get into that, So we put together our Night of the Sun module, that was 2 or 3 years ago, I guess. Put that out, kickstarted it, did okay. We made what we needed, a little more than we thought we were going to make, actually. And now I'm just now finishing up the second module for that series, and so I'm hoping that I'll have that out in, say, 3 or 4 months. And I think I will, and we will be able to do, I think, a little better with this one even than we did with the first one. So we try to pay a lot of attention to collectors since we're printing these. When you do a Kickstarter and you mass whatever total you got, well, that's your printing budget pretty much. So then I can go and get the copies printed for everybody that purchased it through the Kickstarter. Once we get to that phase where it's at the printer, we like to make sure that if we're doing a Kickstarter, we're doing a one of a kind. That book is not, we may print the book again, we may do that book again, but we will not do it in that same form. We'll change a lot of the things that are going on in the book. We'll change some of the art, we'll change NPCs and magic items, things like that, so that each printing of the book is unique. That's because I'm a collector and I like to get I collect all the old stuff, of course. Anytime I'm at a rummage sale or something and find an old module, I just dance around like I found the treasure, but I also like low budget homebrew things that people have made. A lot of people will print off something that they just use with their group, and whenever I can get those, that's I go right for those every time. I'm a sucker for those. I have a ton of that sort of material. I feel like role-playing games are an evolution of storytelling. I feel like it's a stunning evolution of role playing, actually, and we're just in the baby phases of it still, and it's really blooming. And I love to see all the little aspects of it that come from all the little corners, because you never know. Some guy just print out some Kinko's thing, and it may contain some just gem of a little system or something that he's come up with. So I love to collect that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where my interest comes from in it. I've just been a devotee of these games since I first encountered them. I love them with all my heart. I love them. I think they're just the greatest thing going. It's kind of like being back around the campfire, but around the table with dice. And I just can't think of times I've had more fun with my friends than just laughing our asses off and rolling dice, playing a role playing game. So I think that's a pretty good way to while
How
away
did you
the.
start? How did you start with RPGs in the beginning? I mean, playing, not writing.
Well, I first encountered them when I was pretty young. I was with my grandma and I was in a Ben Franklin store, and I came across a spinner rack of the first edition D&D books, and I knew something in me was like, that's it, so I just went right to that, and I was trying like hell to figure it out. I read the back, I got the idea this is a game, and then I could see there were all these books. It was still kind of mysterious. I wasn't sure how this could be a game, these books could be, but I was really fascinated. My grandmother, I swear to God, she never said no to me for anything. This is one of the rare things she didn't buy me ever. And she spoiled me rotten. I loved her. She picked up, I think she grabbed the monster manual. I swear to God, she flipped the page open to the demons. It just fell open to like I remember there's a picture of Orcus or something on the page, and my grandma's looking over those pages, and she's like, I'm not sure this is for kids. And so that was my first brush. That was my first touch of role-playing games. She didn't get them for me. It's probably better she didn't. I don't think I could have understood it even. We would have, honestly, we would have bought like the monster manual, and I'd have been in the same situation I still ended up in. My parents also were mystified by this concept of Dungeons and Dragons. They had no idea what this was. This is, maybe in the early 80s. We were in a small town in Wyoming, so the chances of that just showing up are pretty minuscule. The books that I'd seen had been in Bozeman, Montana when I was with my grandmother, but I lived down in Wyoming at the time. And so it turned out there was a place in town where you could buy some things for Dungeons and Dragons. And my parents went in there because they knew I was constantly talking about the dang thing. So they went in and they bought me the module Isle of Dread, which is a great module. They picked a very good one, but again, I don't know how to play a role-playing game, right? So I get this and I kind of stupidly thought that it would show me how to play the role-playing game. So I must have read that module like 6 times trying to sort it out. I would come up to those stat blocks and then just be like, okay, what the hell is going on here? Speaking in a completely foreign language. And there's no key, nobody ever thought to put down like, HD means hit dice. And I wouldn't have known what a hit dice was anyway, but there was nothing even that definitive. There was just HD, AC, S for strength. But so I just felt like a doofus, like I couldn't do it. So I just started making my own. And I kind of, well, okay. So in this same period, I took this silly field trip from Wyoming. We went to Nashville, Tennessee, and it was a week's stay, and we had to stay with like a guest, families. It was a school exchange. So I would stay with a family, and then later that year, that same family would come and stay with us. So I stayed with a family in Nashville, and their the older brother of the kid I was staying with had Redbox, and I got sick while I was in Nashville and I was bored, and so the mom was like, "Well, play a game with them." And so he breaks out Dungeons and Dragons, and we sat down at the table and we made characters, and we played. I think it was Keep on the Borderlands, but we never made it to anything. We literally walked toward the city gates or something of the town, and I think the game lasted maybe 15 minutes, if that. And then the older brother got bored or had to leave or something, and so that was it. That was the end of the game. But that's all it took. That was enough. I got it. From there, I was like, I see how this works. I see the point. So then I just went home and started making my own, and I started trying to produce my own games for it. I made a bunch of weird versions of it that I tried to use when I was little. But my parents that same year, they managed to get me Redbox, the the basic rules. So then at last I was saved and I could play games, but I don't think I ever lost the love of making the game, like coming at it with a fresh run, just trying to make something that would work like that without any idea how to do it. And I think that's helped me in the long run when it comes to game design anyway. But that's how I got into it, and I've loved it ever since. As I always ask people to, I always want to know how they got into it. How did you get into it?
You want to?
I can go first. Yeah,
Yeah.
normally you always go first. Well, the first role-playing games here in Portugal are not a big thing. So my first experience with it was not really role-playing games, but it was that choose your own adventure books. I love those. Later on, I realized that role-playing games existed, but when I was reading those choose your own adventure books, I could actually would have some group to play because I had other colleagues that also read them. So when I discovered it, I had nobody to play with.
Oh.
So I was okay. This is amazing. I got some books. I read them, but I have nobody to play with. Then I started playing. I don't even remember how I discovered them. To be honest, I think it was something it was browsing the Amazon or something like that I discovered. And they was like, "Oh, this is like those books." Then I started playing by forum or by email, but most of campaigns didn't actually went really well because someone didn't show up and things were really slow and people just lost interest. It was only later on when I met Miguel that actually I started having someone that I had people that I could play with.
What about you, Miguel? When did you find it?
So I started I started with fighting fantasy, not actually a role playing game, but when I started reading those books or playing those books, I found out that there was something a little more advanced than that, and but at the time, I kept on for about a year just playing the fighting fantasy books, but then there was a translation to Portuguese. The first box for BX, the basic box, It was the only thing that was translated to Portuguese, to European Portuguese. There's lots of stuff in Brazilian Portuguese, but um, I didn't know that anyway. So.
Right.
And that was the only thing they decided that I think the plan was to translate the rest, but probably it wasn't financially profitable. So but it was enough for me to start. So I tested it, and then a year after I went with my parents. We went to London, and obviously, unlike here, that I think there was a store in Portugal, but or a couple of stores maybe. But when I got to London, there was much more, much more stuff and much more. And so I went to a store and browsed through it, and I purchased it was AD&D second edition. It was the thing that I think it was new at the time. And that was with that one that I really started playing, because the first one I played with friends that were not role players, and so they tried it. They had fun, but then let's forget about that. But one of them was into it, and so eventually we found other people that were also interested in playing, and then that was our first experience. Though we didn't keep a long time playing Dungeons and Dragons. Um, I was looking for other stuff that wasn't fantasy. I was always more into horror than fantasy.
Oh yeah.
I never read much fantasy actually. I never read the Lord of the Rings, for example. That's a strange thing. I tried reading it, but I started, but it's not for me. I
Right.
was never much of a fantasy guy. So and then we started Call of Cthulhu and Vampire and
Call of Cthulhu, yeah.
Vampire we played for a long time, and I guess you also mentioned the LARPing. I was never into that, because also in Portugal we had very few role players, and I don't know if there was any LARPing things at the time. I think later probably, but when we started, I don't think so. Uh, but we did play a lot of Vampire Masquerade, and I think that was a defining moment for us, because it was more of a 90s game than the rest, and so
Yeah.
that was
More adult game too.
yeah,
More
very
adult themed and more complex themes of conflict is where what I think its real strong point was the put positioning all those clans and then making rivalries out of them and then having them all work together. That's fantastic setting for that.
yeah. I like a lot of the fact that it was, you could play it as a fighting game like any other, but it could be also an intrigue game,
Yep,
or
yep,
more into role play. Just, and obviously you were LARPing, so you weren't fighting, you were
yep.
you were role playing.
Yep. Well, I did a lot of the sit down of it too. I prefer the sit down. If I ever play Vampire again, it will not be LARPing. It will definitely be sitting down. That's for sure. It that is a great game system. That guy made an ingenious game system. It works really well. Didn't they expanded that into a fantasy game? I don't think I didn't ever get into that one though. Exalted, is that right? Am I
Yeah,
right to say
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I think that one. I don't know. Many people liked it, I think, but I never tried that one.
Yeah, that one escaped me too. It just I think the art direction in that game was aiming it a little younger, and I was coming out of Vampire. I wanted a more adult themed sort of game somehow, so it didn't appeal to me really. I did sell it in my store for a short while, but it wasn't my cup of tea.
Okay, to say something about that. Oh yeah, did you play the recent version of Vampire, the fifth edition?
The new ones?
Yeah,
Well, I've seen them and I've seen Black Lodge's review of them. Have you watched that?
yeah.
Seen Black Lodge? First of all, kudos to those guys on their reviews. Those are stellar reviews. They don't just give you the general overview of it. They really go into depth. They almost do an analysis of the game, and I find that incredible and just wonderful to listen to. But I thought they nailed their review of it. I kind of expected them to tear the throat out of it. They did just a bit, just a bit, but not too much. And they delivered I think they gave a really honest, good review of it. And to tell you the truth, that's the first time I was interested in checking it out was after I saw that review. I thought, okay, maybe it's worth a look, especially if they tried to realign the sort of social background of that game into the modern era. However, for me, I think that's just too rife with the woke cult and the whole mess that's going on. And
We tried it, but
We had a bad experience with
very
this.
bad
Miguel
experience.
offered me the new version so I could run Vampire because at the time I was very about being a game master, and then I started reading it and I was like, there's something off about this. I don't know exactly what
yeah,
it is, but I don't
you
really like it.
you start to hear that, you start to smell that wokeness in there, and I think that just drives you out instantly. It's anything that someone does that with. I think if you have a secondary intention or maybe an overriding intention that you're trying to disguise inside of a text, I think that comes out pretty quick. Readers are pretty clever. If you're a good reader, you're gonna spot it very fast. And yeah, that's where I would break. That's yeah, I'm not spending $60 on a book to be preached at. That's for sure.
Well,
It's not
we
gonna
did,
happen.
but uh, we
What's
did,
that?
but we did spend the money in the books, but I I regretted it very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
much.
for me it was better that you just bought that we had bought an older an older version.
Anyway, but if I did a review, I wouldn't be as nice as the Black Lodge guys games. The Black Lodge games guys were, I would trash it certainly. Uh, I believe there may be something good in those in that game in the new version. Maybe the setting there's something interesting in there, but yeah, the
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
fact
I'm
that
with
it
you.
is woke,
It's
I can't go past that.
also, I don't want to be hyperbolic about it, but to me, it's too dangerous now to support that in any way if you can help it. Because I don't know about Europe, but in America, that cult is embedded now. And uh, it's a long. I've seen it. Through college, I saw it, but when I was in school, it was there, but it was amongst the professors mostly, and it wasn't real broad based in the students at all. But there were sections of students that now looking back, I see now that they were devotees. Early on, I was a psych major, and I wanted to be a psychologist. I was thinking I might be a good psychologist for kids. I could do counseling sessions. I even thought maybe there'd be a way to incorporate role playing games into that kind of thing, and because I'd seen it help other people. I'd seen so many shy and just really nerdy kids, because back in the day that's what was playing those games. I'd seen it bring out so much in them, and make such good tight bonds of friendships and things that you need, to get you through life. Those were really important things that role-playing games had brought to so many people. So that was my kind of plan. But consistently, I would meet with the woke faction that was sort of in charge of the whole thing, and I could see the people that were being sort of pushed forward through the system. And to my way of thinking, those people were so nuts. I couldn't believe you were going to put them in charge of other people's mental well-being. It scared me, and I backed out. I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't for me. I don't want to be involved in this. And that was pretty early. I mean, that's back in the 90s, early 90s. So it was there and it was creeping up, but at this point in America, it is fully inflamed. It has infested many of our largest businesses. It's infected a whole range of our institutions, to our detriment, to our danger. It's hurting our children. It's hurting us. And it's becoming worse. And it's really a cult. To to my mind, my way of looking at it, it is literally as if some crazed cult has swept in and almost taken control of the whole mechanism of government. That's a frightening prospect to wake up and see. And it happened gradually and slowly, but now it's blooming. Well, I'll take that back. There's a real pushback now. It seems like we may be finally gaining ground against it. It's wonderful that the economy of it has allowed us to. You know, the just people finally they've finally gotten sensitive to it. They finally are seeing it. You know, I don't know how many Marvel movies had to be put out before people could just be like, okay, what the hell is happening here, right? And so people are finally seeing it, and it takes a lot to wake up sort of middle America. Middle America's, you know, is a very live and let live sort of culture. We let people be their crazy selves. You know, they can be crazy Christian, they can be crazy Muslim. We're okay with that to a degree. We tolerate it. Pretty good at that. But this cult has really overtaken, and it it's become so spread that it's a little terrifying. It's honestly a little spooky. I'm not exactly sure where this is going. Some part of me wants to think it's just a Chinese conspiracy, that this is their very subtle and ingenious attack that's damn near got us. I'm hoping we haven't woke up to it too late. Frankly, you know, Europe has gone through these things. You've had madnesses sweep through Europe quite a bit. We've seen them. We should know this when we see it. This is just a slightly different form. And it's taken us a while to really start to grapple with this. And thank God some people are. And that's why I am so proud to be here talking to you specifically from the Red Room, because of your own wars and where you have been, you know, shunned and kicked back from the woke idiocy. RPG pundit right there with you. You are brave and outspoken and genius and pure and good, and I am absolutely just thrilled to even get to talk to you. You should know that it's not missed. We see it. Those of us that are waking up, we see it. We see where the moral lines are on this, and you, sir, both of you are standing exactly on the right side of that line.
It was very strange for us.
We have the here, but it's still
It's
it's in Europe. Here in Portugal, I think it's starting to, because it started in colleges.
Everything in Portugal
starting
starts
to,
very slowly, and it takes time to be imported. And I
but
wasn't.
it's starting here.
Yes, it is. Well, I was in college in the 90s, and I cannot say that I'm sure that it wasn't here. I know it was, but not in. I think it was just one college because they were known as the crazy left.
Right.
But that's kind of normal. That there's always a place like that. In my,
Sure.
my college was the professors were mostly right wingers, so I don't think there were. And it was a social sciences college, so it could have been a place like that. But since the professors were right wingers mostly, I didn't see anything like that. So I'm not sure when it did arrive here. Probably arrived the same way through colleges. Uh, but it's still difficult to see anything out there, and people don't know. My parents have no idea about this stuff.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't.
Same with mine. I, my poor parents, you know, the cult preys on the idea of being good, right? Like, wouldn't it be good if we all just got along? Well, yes, it would be. Of course it would be. And we had been striving, I think, to do exactly that. But that's where it begins. Everything seems like the way it's phrased, the way it's brought in is all this is for the better good, and we're trying to, you know, do this wonderfully, I don't know what, it's just a good thing, right? So when it comes in sheep's clothing like that, it's difficult for, you have to be a little savvy. It gets easier, I think, for those of us who are out actually punching in the melee, right? If you're out there involved at all in business, then you're crashing against it constantly. If you're out there at all involved in sort of the interactions, and if you have kids that are going to school, oh God, don't even get me started on, I have kids, and the schools are just, ugh. I'm in Montana. Montana is a very conservative state, and we're kind of the backwoods, right? Wyoming also, it's a lot less in Wyoming, a lot less woke in Wyoming, but I'm in the most liberal portion of Montana, a town called Missoula, and it's always been known as like the liberal hub of Montana. It's kind of why I moved here, because everybody's, kind of freaky like me, and we all just a lot of role players here. We play a lot of role playing games, but this has gone way beyond that at this point. It's become a real problem, a kind of frightening problem, frankly. I think a lot of us in America are not sleeping real easily over this, especially now because we're in election season. Things are getting pretty nasty. I don't want to piss anybody off, but I'm no fan of Trump either. I feel like he's just as much a bullshitter as any politician we've ever had, really. I don't trust him. I have no idea what his connections to the Russians are. But at this point, I'm not going to vote for him. I might vote for JFK Jr. I think he's pretty sane. I'd like him in there, but though I won't cast a vote for Trump, I will not say that I will not be relieved to be in a boat with Trump at the head of it rather than the liberals. But I don't know that gets us in a much better space. I think it just avoids a much worse situation than we already have, I guess. I don't know. It's a messed up time. It's a really rough time. Good
What's
time for role-playing games,
the
though.
reaction that people had to Trump? The reaction, the triggered reaction from Trump being elected is like it was a problem that was not created. And well, I don't know because I'm not in America, but was Trump that bad? It doesn't compare to what's going
Well,
on in Sweden.
No, the effect that it had on the country was not. Everything worked well. The trains arrived on time. Money got paid to everybody. There was money made, and we weren't all starving. And it wasn't quite as bad as it is now, especially economically. I don't. I'm not sure if it matters what clown we put at the top for any of that. I think that stuff just comes and goes on its own. But yeah, I don't know. I am worried that Trump is just he's enough of a rascal that it's possible he's done something so stupid that the Russians have something on him. Very possible. That's just not outside my imaginative scope. I know that everyone is disproven and throwing a fit about, his Russian connections. I just am some part of me is still hesitant with him. That's I think just the accusation's enough to frighten me off from him. I'm not going to vote for him, but a lot of people are. He probably, most likely, if they don't put him in jail, if we don't just honestly break into a civil war, which that's an odd thing to say, but that's an honest to God possibility. That's the next 3 years are going to tell the tale what's going to happen with this, and it could get damn nasty, and I hope it doesn't, but this is it's gotten to that point. We've reached a spooky head. About half of the country is absolutely done with this woke bullshit, and the other half is embedding themselves deeper and deeper day by day. They can't. I don't even know how they can come out. It's almost impossible at this point. I don't think they can back out of it. I'm not sure that. I I'm worried. I am sure I'm not the only American that will tell you that. I'm worried. It's a little bit frightening. It's not something that Americans are used to feeling. We generally felt, all growing up, all through the 80s, all through the 90s. I was convinced there was nothing that was ever going to threaten America. I just didn't know that a cult might rise up in the middle of it, and that would be the threat, but it is.
Very strange times. Even for us, we found out about it. All the woke lunacy. We only found out after Trump was elected, because
Oh yeah,
there was that wave
yeah,
of lunacy everywhere, and it was
yeah.
okay. So at that time, for us, Trump was a strange choice, because for us he was a guy that, well, he was a billionaire, obviously, but also a TV show presenter, a
Yeah,
reality show presenter.
yeah.
It
Just
was
a
strange for
smiling
him to get
head.
elected. But then it was even more strange what happened next. Everybody going crazy, and the media going crazy as well.
Yeah, yeah. The
And
media
then there
did
was
not
COVID,
let up.
and
I
that's
was just thinking about that today. I was in the car taking my kid to school, and I had just still out of habit because I'm an idiot. I turn on NPR, which is our national public radio, because that's where you would get the best news. Literally, for most of my life, if you wanted to know what was actually happening, you would go to NPR because they would give you a really good rundown of what was happening in the world. that ended the day Trump got elected. NPR went so woke that it's now it's insane. You start listening to the news and it never deals with what's actually happening. It always deals with the woke perspective of what's happening. It's just a nightmare. Just a nightmare. So you feel suddenly you kind of feel disconnected, like you don't have any ability to access real news, you know.
Yeah.
Thank God for the internet, not because there's, you know, I know there's a lot of fake news too, but you can sometimes find channels that will at
Yeah.
least try to bring some sort of a moderated central view of the. I like the news programs where you have a right wing and a left wing pundit, and they come, you know, they'll face off over these issues. I love that. I love that. That gives you kind of a perspective from both sides. But without that, even information is becoming harder to get. I'm also surprised that in our advanced technological state, we are suffering the levels of censorship, and sort of that they're turning the powers of these technologies not to expand our ability to communicate, but to restrict who can access communication. That's mind-boggling. I guess we all should have seen that coming, but anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring us down with all this crazy talk about
No, no,
this
no
is
problem.
exactly why we need role-playing games, because people need to stop thinking about this crap for a while so they can get their heads straight.
Well, it's difficult because all of this has infiltrated the hobby as well. So
Yeah, yeah, and since anyone that deals in the industry, even a little, you face it a lot. It's the thing you're going to be crashing into over and over again. So yeah,
Here
it
in
comes up.
Portugal, the industry is very tiny. It is completely taken over by the woke.
and that was
I
probably
mean, I'm not talking about the industry, it's the hobby, because
there's
there's
no
no
industry.
industry. I think we are the industry.
Yeah,
We
we are.
that are
We are.
Right, you are the industry, yeah, but
Yeah.
But that was the first time that we had an inkling of what is going on in terms of wokeism in Portugal was related to role-playing games. Was it what, a year ago?
When we
1
got
year.
cancelled
Yeah.
with our
We were invited to go to the convention because there's just one.
But it's a narrative games convention, not a role-playing games
Yes.
convention. So we need to say this is what
Yeah,
we call it.
they are mostly into story games, not really role-playing games.
Sure.
But yeah, well, it's also role-playing games and also board games. But we had a couple of friends there. They were helping organize the stuff, and they told the guys about the guys that organized the convention. They told us about us because we don't mingle with the local people.
Right.
And they said, well, these guys are publishing stuff in English, but they
They
publish.
publish tons of books.
Yeah. So they put us in their
Awards.
yeah, as nominees for their annual award, and they didn't think about. Well, they didn't even read the books actually.
Right.
They just noticed, okay, there's lots of books, so they are doing something, but they didn't think about talking to us or even looking at our social media. So since compared to the other nominees, we had a much larger work. They
Yeah.
awarded us that year. So it was a one year and a half ago, I think. We went to the convention. We picked up the award, and we had a little chat.
We gave them a bunch of books.
Yeah, we gave them a bunch of books because they were doing
A
a
raffle.
raffle.
Yeah. And we're like, okay, here, take them.
And we had a nice chat. It was everything as I knew they were woke, of course, because
Right.
their website had all that woke talk. So I knew
Right.
that at least perhaps not everybody, but I knew most of them were woke.
But we want to be nice to the guys that nominated us. Okay, we're gonna go there and get the award because we are educated people.
So we knew that there were not woke people there because my friends aren't woke. So
Right.
at least those two aren't. The other ones, I assumed they were kind of. But then the week after, I found out that someone had found out about us.
Check their social media, probably our Twitter.
Checked out Twitter, probably our Twitter feed, and then they found out that we had problematic worldviews.
Yeah.
And then they unawarded us. I think that's the word
Yes.
for
Unawarded you?
yes.
Oh
It was a
my
very
God.
a very funny thing.
Told me just to say, can you please give the award back?
It was a
Did,
very funny
oh
thing.
my God. What do you do in that sort of situation? I think I'd have been like, no,
I
not
left,
giving your award back.
No.
I laughed a lot.
It was just it was just a trophy, right?
Of course, yeah, we didn't get anything, just a small
Right.
trophy.
It was nice at the Raven, sitting on a D12, a 3D, 3D printing. It was like, no, this is my award. You're not gonna take it.
But yeah, this is of course this is all a joke because it's a small community. The award was
Yeah.
nothing, but then people who do this, they will do much worse.
Yeah.
They are crazy, and so that was our first
And only
encounter,
like, yes, we
and
don't
yeah,
want to have
because
anything to do with these people.
no, not
And everybody
never
they're
more.
not insane, even though some of them are a little bit woke, they're making fun of them because this you gave an award and you gave an award and you didn't know who you're giving the award to. That's ridiculous. You are completely incompetent. That's what you're saying.
Of course, we know
Right.
like things are in Portugal that they didn't even look at the books. We know
Right.
that.
Right.
I know. I'm pretty sure about that. But yeah, that's not how things should have been done.
Well, you deserve an award. You put out quality, incredible work at a volume that just shames most other most other printers and publishers. You are very good at what you do. If anyone deserves an award, it's you guys, honestly.
Yeah, we're not expecting that.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think a superior reward is just to be seen to be doing the actual right thing, which
Yeah.
is, supporting free speech, living your way, not hurting other people. You're doing exactly the right thing. That speaks for itself. It speaks way louder than any award you could give. And people see it, they'll find it.
Another thing that I think that's important that is that most publishers, even the independent ones, are all doing the same boring stuff. Very safety tools and diluting something and not touching mature teams and doing stuff just uh, that's
Yeah,
really boring.
it's it makes things hard. I had a friend whose daughter was undergoing some cancer treatments, and I wanted to. Me and some other friends that do games thought, well, why don't we run like a weekend game thing, a contest or something, and give out a few awards to like best role players and whoever survives through the just a short series of adventures with their characters, kind of like a what did they used to call them? They used to do them all the time. You used to be able to go through dungeons at a convention, and it would be like a contest. They would have pre-made characters. You might play like the fighter, and if you didn't die, if you made it to the end, you'd be scored on how well you had played and how well you'd done, and then everybody's compared, and the winners would get a prize, something like that. So we were thinking about doing something along those lines, and kind of tried to put it together, but really swiftly it came in like, okay, so how do you start to realize that a lot of the people that show up are going to be woke and they're going to, it's possible if you don't have those safety tools in place, they will attack you to make the point that they weren't in place, right? Or that they will do something in the course of the games that makes it so that it looks like you needed to have the damn things in place, and you don't. They do nothing but disrupt the game. No, no one had any intention of doing anything that would have scarred or hurt or even insulted anyone playing. There's no group of people more welcoming than role players. Anyone can sit down at a table and play with people if they're cool. If they're just going to be cool and have fun, that's all. That's the requirement, right? If you don't like the people, by all means, don't play with them. But those things get tricky. So we just weren't able to do that. We couldn't. I couldn't see a way to do it without the liabilities of the problems that would be generated by the wokesters that showed up. And so we kind of put that aside. My game Cold Steel Rain deals a lot with slavery and with just, everything, drugs, you name it. It all of it's in there. And I've held off a long time reprinting or redoing that game simply because right now, just you release that concept and you will be attacked over it pretty hard. Not that I couldn't handle it. I guess I don't know if I'm up for dealing with that exactly. And so I've held off. I keep thinking maybe we'll come back to sanity and I can revamp that game. Or, and I'm beginning to learn other ways around it. I could kickstart it. I could do it on my own. Well, maybe, by the time I get around to kickstarting it, they'll probably have so many rules that I wouldn't be able to get it there either. So
Probably not on
uh,
Kickstarter, but
Indiegogo.
yeah, I think Indiegogo
is that a better? Some people claim Indiegogo is a little better, but I'm not sure because I
I guess
can't.
in that terms, it's probably better, less censoring, I guess.
Yeah.
We know someone, you probably know him as well, Grim Jim.
Yeah.
He
Well,
has,
I haven't met him, but I know him.
he has used basically Indiegogo because I don't think most of his games would have been accepted or
Kickstarter.
possible. I think he had the problem with Kickstarter. I'm not really sure, but he started
Oh.
using Indiegogo, so I guess that's.
Well, I mean, I don't want to decry Kickstarter. I've heard that they've become a little more woke, but when I did my first game, uh I had absolutely no problems at all from them, and it went through just fine. So that I think that's where I'm going to try to continue to work in that direction. But then again, like the modules I'm producing, they don't really deal with, say, slavery. That's not actually an issue. Um, I still am hesitant because I don't like having a shadow over me anywhere. I don't like anyone to come and say, well, you can't put this in your game. Well, the hell with you. I put whatever I want in my goddamn game if it works for the game, just, I happen to be making modules where slavery isn't a focus, but that doesn't mean that I might not want to put one out later where it is, where that it's an ideal thing for a role-playing game. Of course you want that. You can be playing characters freeing slaves. You can be slaves freeing yourselves. You can be all of those, how the hell do you get to those types of stories if you can't even talk about the concept, right? So the restrictions on these concepts is, well, it's just too much. You can't live like that and produce good quality work that way. Obviously, I mean, look at everything that WotC has produced over
exactly.
what, the last 2 or 3 years. My God, they're not even bringing in people that have ever played the game.
Yeah.
Ever. And those are the ones they're saying, write this
People
book.
wrote cookbooks and all that stuff.
Yeah,
It just has to be diverse and inclusive.
it's I can't decide if the woke cult was smart enough to see the power of role-playing games and to seize control of Dungeons and Dragons specifically, or if they just accidentally gained control of it and have no clue what they have a hold of. Because I mean, they really have a cultural relic. They literally have their claws on the cultural relic of Dungeons and Dragons. And it's not that big of a deal right now, but in 100 or 200 years, I swear to God, Dungeons and Dragons is going to be one of the crown jewels in America's list of creations, right? The things that have come out right up there with airplanes, nuclear weapons. These are things we've made. Dungeons and Dragons belongs in that crown. It does because it absolutely is an evolution just out of scale to all other storytelling. It's one of the biggest inventions at the end of the 20th century. One of the largest, most important. We haven't even scratched the surface what these games are capable of. I swear to God, in the future, if we don't blow ourselves all to hell, I think one of our main teaching tools will be role-playing games. I can't think of a better way to teach anything, especially concepts of history like Pundit's doing. Look, I'm just playing in that campaign with Pundit. I've learned more about the Silk Road and the real locations along that Silk Road and the real time, the real people involved than I ever would have just by studying a book, because I am imagining interacting in it and I'm having it created by someone who knows it, right? So holy God, it's exactly what you need for teaching, I think. I know I get hyperbolic about it. I've been making this argument for 30 years to people. I really firmly believe there's a damn near magical power in role-playing games. Not to mention, just wait till an AI that is not woke, a non-woke AI,
Not Gemini.
gets a hold of it. When we have AI DMs, oh my God, but I cannot, literally, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see how that works. That's going to be a big feature of it eventually, you know.
Yeah.
I was early on in that VTT stuff, so I see what Wizards is trying to do. However, their disconnect from the actual game they're trying to sell
Yeah.
is so complete at this point that I just don't think it will even be relevant to the game. I think it's yet another just waste of time. It's a little too bad. Uh, man, there's no way to save it. You couldn't, you just can't get enough of the woke out of the upper echelons of that company to allow for it to actually come out the way it would need to. But you know, D&D's gone through this crap before. It fell all apart when at the end of the 80s, kind of fell all apart, and when WotC snagged it up, frankly, they'd driven it kind of into the dirt there. Because again, you had people that didn't play the game, believe in it, or even know what it was at the helm. And so inevitably that means someone else is going to end up owning it. So I'm hoping that I can become a bazillionaire and buy the thing. Elon Musk, buy Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, that it's the thing to have bought. It was probably the best investment WotC could have ever made. When you think about the scope of its IP, just look at the monster manual. Just the monster manuals. That's an endless flood of IP right there. Just that damn monster manual, let alone all the other worlds and all the other things that have come about from it. They should have been using this last 10 years to produce new and better worlds. They should have expanded Dark Sun greatly. They should have magnificently expanded Dark Sun. It's really frustrating that didn't happen. I'm glad they didn't, because they would have ruined it. But that's, if a sane company had control of it, those are the things that would be happening for it. And it would be dwarfing everything else that's going on. I have to remind myself of that, because I feel like the OSR is really now where all of the energy has shifted in terms of role playing and in terms of like its growth and its potential. It's all carried there. And it is true, no matter how bad WotC wrecks it, you really can't take the game away from us. We all know it now. It's
Yeah.
all embedded in us, and for every single one of us that runs a game, we show it and teach it to the next person that comes along. So you can't really put that genie back in the bottle, and you can drive the company into the dirt, but honestly, the game will live on. It absolutely will. Just in the meantime, they happen to be cinching down all the terminology and the language and the words around it. That's really getting frustrating to me. I get really mad about it. Just a couple weeks ago, I wasn't able to get my issue number 2 of the Mad Hermit's Almanac up on RPG Drive Through RPG because I had used the term Dungeon Master and DM.
Yeah,
I,
you mentioned that on
yeah,
public.
I'm pretty raw about that. I am still raw about that. I find that just infuriating.
So they have the copyright or something on that.
Yeah, I know.
Kind of
It's
silly,
just
right?
at a certain
Dungeon
level,
Master.
I've invested so many thousands of dollars and thousands of hours into this game. At some point, that damn word, I think, belongs to me
It's
and
petty.
everyone else who's
It's
done a
petty for
similar thing.
them. Yeah.
What's that?
It's petty. It's really petty.
Yeah.
No, Dungeon Master is ours. You can't use that word. That's really
Yeah, well, you know, Pundit made a good point on his show too. He pointed out that like Kleenex, for instance, you always say hand me a Kleenex, even if it's not Kleenex brand, right? Because that's a Kleenex. And there have been lawsuits over that. I believe that Dungeon Master is one that would fit right in that same avenue. Um, Hopefully somebody with some money. There are a lot of gamers out there that got money. Somebody should sue over that and free up that term. And I imagine they eventually will, but till then I'm trying to figure out weird ways around it. I don't even know what to do with it really.
That one doesn't really bother me. I always use the Game Master, never Dungeon
Yeah.
Master.
You know,
It's the
I did that. I did that too with Cold Still Rain. I did that. And at the time it didn't bug me. But because it's been taken from me
yeah.
now it bugs me. Like I might have let it lie and not even cared, except for somebody put their paw on it and said it was theirs, and I just want to stab that paw. It ain't theirs. It makes me very mad.
Okay.
That's me. I'm a little crazy about these things. I get uptight about about that. I
Like
did
I say,
see
but the drive-through is probably censoring more than they should probably maybe. I'm not even sure if Wizards of the Coast would worry that much about that.
I didn't think they would put up any of the stuff that I put out. I'm surprised every time it gets accepted at all. And it may be that I won't always be able to get my almanacs onto RPG, the drive through RPG. Just there are some that there may be things I just don't want to change, and I'm not going to put up there. So I'll just put them on the Red Room, and that's fine with me. That's perfect. That's how it should work. That thank God there's an outlet where people can go to get the things that haven't been edited and censored down to nothingness. You can still access free speech, things that have been born out of free speech, and those are, Red Room is right up there doing it. That's
that
good.
was one of the reasons that even if they hadn't banned us at the time, they would start censoring stuff, and I wouldn't go for that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
impossible. I don't
And
accept.
that's not something they ever do backward. They never loosen that. If it starts to tighten, I guarantee you it will tighten more, but it will not loosen. So there will come a point where that's probably going to strain most. Well, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I don't know. I think,
I have lots of junk there that is very woke, so they might they could probably survive on that. I'm not sure. Maybe not.
I think, hopefully someone with some good business, there must be someone with some business sense there. I mean, they certainly aren't restricting the OSR products that come through there entirely. And they are selling really well for that website. So whoever's at the top of it must know their gaming to some degree. They must, or this just wouldn't function. And I imagine they're not quite as woke as, that they're healing to some of the line, but I'm worried they're going to continue to heal if we don't break that line pretty quick anyway. I think that'd be good for the Red Room, though. If they did get more restrictive, I imagine you will see far more people jumping ship and headed straight for you. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, at least as we 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 lost a lot of the spotlight. I think we can say that when we get out of there. So it has been
Yeah.
difficult to reach the audience because they have they basically have a monopoly of
Yeah.
digital sales, and there are other stores, but the other stores, well, actually, the other stores appeared after we were banned. Big Geek Emporium is getting larger, but it's still a small thing. And then there was Giant Slay Games, but that's very, very recent. But obviously this is not. There's no comparison to what happened there. Even Lulu, we can sell at Lulu, but people
that want to buy role-playing games in digital form go to drive-through.
Yeah.
They are used to going to
Yeah,
drive-through,
that's
and they'll
basically
find the
it, yeah.
things in drive-through. Yeah.
Even Lulu, I think Lulu is a large store, but people go there when they are looking for your product, not any product. They don't go there to browse and see what's available. And
Not yet.
people,
But
not
these things
yet.
do, yeah, they do shift. And I feel like the way it's trending now, well, it's in a pretty good uptrend for OSR. But if it becomes more restrictive, if drive-through does start to tighten in harder, especially on things like the Dungeons and Dragons IP is so broad that it's almost impossible someone isn't going to stumble over aspects of it, all along the way. Well, we've already had to come up with a whole list of new names for the monsters just so that we like Eye Tyrant instead of Beholder. That's an old name, and I don't mind it. It's just frustrating we have to do that. We have to like start to alter our entire language to be able to make these things work. I'm an American. I don't want anybody to tell me I can't say shit.
Well, when the OGL thing happened, we just decided, okay, let's do a new version and let's change names, even if we don't have really. We didn't really have to change the attribute names. But yeah. I decided at that moment, okay, so they don't want us to use them. Okay, we are not going to use them anymore. So let's just change this.
No, I think it's a good clean break.
Yeah, I guess it's probably even a little more wretched, I guess. We chose names that are more wretched. So muscle and brains and toughness and sex appeal. sound a little bit more wretched than the original names, and they changed
Absolutely.
other stuff as well. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't really mind that. Just,
No, I think that works just perfectly, actually. And it's fine. And it lends flavor to that game. It's good.
yeah. And we use that to increase the flavor of the game. So the rules were too much like the original, and then there was some changes, and those changes improved it. That you only saw the new version, not the old
Yeah,
version.
yeah,
So,
that's the one I've got. I got the new one.
yeah. So I think it's much better than the original one.
No, I think it's great. I really like it. It's good stuff.
And we mentioned that, but not on record. We would like to have something from you published
Well,
to
you know,
us.
I've been thinking about it. The one that so there's I have two games that people talk about with me, at least mostly, and that's Shades of Divinity, that Fallen Angel one that I do love. That's a really fun one, but that's on a LARPing system, so there's really no table mechanics involved at all, right? The way we have it set up. So it would be very easy to strap that down though to an OSR system. So I've thought about that quite a bit, but Cold Steel Rain as well. The the most complicated portion of the Cold Steel Rain game is the character. Like it most of the weight of Cold Steel Rain is right on the character sheet. So being able to make the characters is a little complex. I could solve all that if I were to take Cold Steel Rain and strap it to an OSR system. And I have thought about that quite a bit. The problem I'm having when I think about it is that my my combat mechanic is maybe the best part of Cold Steel Rain, and it's die 12 based. A lot of the systems that I do it, I love the die 12. That's kind of my go-to dice. But I specifically made my combat system based on a die 12, and it works really slick. And I'm loath to give it up. I don't want to, you know. So I'm trying to figure out how to use the OSR system, but maintain that same thing. Since the bonuses no longer apply straight across because you're dealing with a die 12 base rather than die 20 base, that alters kind of how that feels. So I'm not sure I can get away with it or not. I've been looking at it, but I am thinking about doing it. It also needs about half of it stripped out. I just am way too wordy. I just explain things way too much. I need to just pull it back to its core basic constituents, get that all organized correctly and shrunk. And I think I'll have a very viable game that I can sell. And I just, it's a lot of work. So I've been hesitant. I'm working on these modules right now. I kind of want to focus on that. I think I'm going to keep playing with the modules for a bit, and sometime in the next year or so, though, I may come knocking at your door with a revamped version of my Cold Steel Rain, see what you think of it. And maybe there's something we could do there.
That would be great. We are always looking for more people to publish anything that is not necessarily Ratchet. It could be something else, but the
Well,
option.
you're a damn good publisher, so you should have people coming to you pretty soon, is what I'm assuming. You really are a good publisher. You're fast. God, you're fast.
We had some guys that came looking for us. The last one was very recently. He had something that he had done, and probably the themes would be a little bit more difficult to. And there was Man, of course. That's something that no one else would have published that. The guy who wrote it, he wrote it 10 years ago, and he didn't even try to get that published because no one would publish that. And and even I hesitated a bit.
So this is worth checking out then. What is
Oh
this
yeah,
one?
that one is very, very, very.
That was the one that got us kicked out.
Yeah, that it was after that we were banned. But well, they didn't ban us exactly because of the content. They would probably have banned us anyway, but they
complained with
Yeah.
about the
they
game being censored.
they were censoring it. They took it out after I don't know 3 or 4 days at the store. Someone complained because it was problematic, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And that wasn't the first time that happened before.
Yeah,
So
we had more titles to be
yeah, we
removed.
had several.
We were kind of pissed off with that.
There was one that was actually removed. It was called Sexual Holocaust, but the name is probably more problematic than the game itself. It's just not a game; it's a scenario.
Again, that's just the tyranny of yet another word. I mean, how many can they X out before we can't say anything or we
Yeah.
can't present anything across, you know? Like that's just got to stop. That's just insanity. Adults can make their own minds up about things, you know, if you give them just give them warning, that's fair. Say, hey, that's what I
Let
did with
everything
Cold.
is mature.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember the
that's what I
time
did
when
with Cold
the
Steel Rain.
role-playing games had that thing saying, but for mature players. And that's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
doing anything
yeah.
else.
That should be all that's required. That's what I did with Cold Steel Rain. I put a little blurb on the back, said, hey, this game is about slaves and drugs and you know everything. It's the whole panoply of everything you've ever been told is bad and you shouldn't do. It's in here. So if you don't like that, you know, leave it alone. Go find a
Mhm.
different game. This one isn't going to work for you.
Yeah, that's it. That's the way it should work. And well, for us, it I guess being banned from drive-through had its obvious disadvantages, but the advantage is now we are not constrained by censorship.
Yeah.
We
No,
can
you're
say
growing your own and doing
what we
really
want.
well with it. I think you're doing well. Your webpage is sparkly awesome. It works perfectly. It's you have done a really good job, and I think you're only going to grow. And especially if they cinch down harder, if they keep cinching down, then absolutely people are just going to start flooding out of there. And when it at the point when you can't get the best gaming stuff from there anymore, where you have to go out to Lulu or other to
Yeah, that
secondary.
that would be good because if people are too used to being to going to drive-through and looking for stuff there, I think people should start looking around
And
and
being
finding.
lazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, because that's basically that. That's laziness. They go there and
it
they buy
is.
stuff there. They don't search the internet. They don't Google stuff anymore. They don't. That was I remember that when I was looking for games, I went to drive-through, but I didn't just went to drive-through. I was
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for games elsewhere,
Yep.
uh, and that's probably going to happen more if they start kicking other people away. I don't know.
it's
I
a
hope so.
it's a very simple economic proposition. They either let people publish, let them continue to publish and uphold free speech so that they can, or they cinch it back and they lose that market. That's just how that works. At least, thank God, that's how that works. Capitalism works pretty damn well in that particular case. If you're going to be woke, I don't have to give you my money. And that's just how it goes, you know.
And our we know also that Ratchet is a niche, but still we could probably
Yeah.
maybe it will happen still reach some more people that would be interested in that niche, but it's difficult to reach the audience, and that's
Well,
why.
you are getting out there, and the quality of your work speaks for itself. So the people that do find you know what they're getting and suddenly realize, okay, this is good stuff, and that will carry you. You just got to get more of that. It's just got to keep going, and it will. It absolutely will. There's no way for it not to. People that love these games, they will find it. Eventually, they will. Their nose will lead them to it. It will happen.
Yeah, we started recently. I
Yeah.
guess we can say that it feels like it was a long time ago, but it was just 2 years ago, so it's recent.
Yeah, it
There's
is very recent.
lots of time to expand. So is
Yep.
there something else that you would like to talk about?
Gosh, I can't. We've covered just about everything. State of the world and role playing games in it. I don't know. You got any predictions for what's coming? What's the next big thing coming in role playing games? What you would know better than I.
Oh, that would
You need
be.
to go with it's not a bingo, it's a merry-go-round because it's
Oh
always
yeah.
the same thing coming back again.
Yeah, seems to be. Seems to be.
I guess the turning point for D&D it's going to happen soon when they
Yeah,
start.
It
one
certainly
Okay,
is.
D&D,
yeah,
when
the
they
one
show,
D&D is
yeah,
probably
let's see.
it's probably going to be the big thing, I guess. We never
Uh,
know. Something
I
crazy might happen in the meantime, but that's the one we can predict, I guess.
I feel like I think they know they have look, it's numbers, right? It's just somebody in an enormous corporation, I assume, must sit and look at the numbers. I have this fantasy in my head that there's an accountant somewhere, and that accountant is saying, well, God, the last six books we did, each one sold worse than the last, and they were all really woke. And now we're going to put out D&D 1, and it's even more woke. How do you think that's going to go? It's not going to go. It's not going to go at all. And if that's what they're doing, they're doomed. They're absolutely doomed. That will be the end of Dungeons and Dragons under WotC. I suppose someone else will buy it, but there's every chance that the next company that buys it is just as woke or more woke.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe
Apparently,
more clever about hiding their woke bullshit inside
yeah.
what they produce. So I don't have a lot of hope for it. I'm scared of what's going to come out of. They wrecked my game.
That's true. Apparently, no one cares about the opinions of the reasonable people saying that what you're saying, right? Disney is doing the same thing, but they have lots
The
of money
problem is
to.
the public
Yeah.
apparently, yeah, they should be buying the game. So the
Yeah.
problem is us.
They always blame the audience. Oh, yo, you racist pigs.
Yep,
You're
you
not
bigots.
buying.
Yep,
It's your
exactly.
fault.
God, man, I'm also the 80s cannot have been the high point, right? It cannot have been the high water mark. We
Yeah,
should be
true.
so far beyond that at this point, and we've just been stifled by this crap. But I think we've covered it mostly, and you're right. It's the next big development's going to be when that D&D 1 comes out. We should get together again when it does, and let's have a chat. We'll look it over and review it. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that. Let's do a review session of D&D 1 when it comes out. Give me a few days to read it, and because I'll be cussing and yelling and throwing things at my computer. But as soon as I've made it through the whole thing, let's get together and tear it apart.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for coming and sharing your opinions about all
And your
these subjects
experience.
and your experience as well. Yes.
Well, thank you so
And,
much for having me. It's a real honor to get to meet both of you. I've seen you on videos before, so it is a pleasure to be able to actually speak with you and talk to you. And this was really fun. Thank you so much. It made my birthday.
Yes, have a nice day.
Thank you,
Have a
guys.
great
Have a
day.
good
nice
one.
birthday. Yeah.
We'll see you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.